All right, so this is a follow-up item to determine the
Yep.
number of bedrooms here, and then we can then understand more about the makeup of the housing there and what the school is going to be looking at, and then refer it to the housing consultants. Okay. Does anybody have any additional comments or questions on 1.6? All right. I know we don't have Eloise here for the SHI, the affordable housing, but I do think that they're in compliance with the mix that's required under zoning bylaw, right?
Right, and the SHI just got updated, and we're at 16.9,
Okay, all right.
which, of course, will change with the 2020 census, but, I mean, I still think we're going to be like 13 and a half or something.
Okay. Now, is the, Mary, just for your reference, this is section 1.6D. In fact, Mary, I'm giving you this to follow along. Okay, thank you. So, this is section 1.7D. So the mix that's prescribed says 25% affordable to those making 50% of area median income, and the balance of the units affordable to those making 80% of area median income. So is that mix met in the SHI units?
I'd have to ask.
Oh, okay, well, we can,
I can ask. I
Okay.
can follow up on that if you want.
okay. Okay. Section 2.2, and I would add, before I move on to section 2, I would encourage you, I've only, when I went through the development agreement and the modifications, I really kind of paid close attention to the sections that have, I guess, areas that are directly relevant to town, to town services, to traffic and things like that. So I would encourage you to look at those sections that I haven't noted in the summary, because I'm only human too, and I don't want to miss anything. All right, so section 2.2. This is, and I'm going to read the highlighted sections here of the summary. The developer, in addition to the normal, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to read the section. I know we're being taped and minutes are being taken, so I want to be sure that we all have the same understanding. In addition to the normal fees paid to the town of Berlin for building permits and other permits, the developer shall assume reasonable expenses of ongoing inspection and review of the construction process, in compliance with all applicable conditions and requirements of the zoning bylaw, the village development plan, and VO site plan approvals, which the town may treat as a gift under Chapter 44, Section 53A. My understanding is that actually had to be treated as an agency fund, so a special revenue fund as opposed to a donation or gift fund. Anyway, upon issuance of a building permit for the project or for any phase thereof, the town shall provide to the developer an initial estimate of the cost of inspection and review services, and the developer shall deposit said amount in an interest-bearing escrow account, such an initial account not to exceed $100,000. The town shall draw from the escrow account as necessary to pay for reasonable inspection and review services, and shall provide additional estimates for the developer when the balance of the escrow account is reduced to a point below the anticipated requirements for the net month. So my understanding is that a separate agreement was actually executed with NRP, the owner of the land where the residential buildings sit now, that would pay for a local inspector to conduct inspections. My question is there any other agreement that would have paid for fire inspections and other relevant inspections and reviews of the project? Do we know if any agency fund was set up, if any monies were put into it or paid out of it?
I'd have to look and see,
Okay.
depending on what they called it.
Okay. And again, this doesn't require answers right now, it's just questions.
And this is not just limited to the NRP group apartment complex, this is the
This
whole
is
development
the
down there?
project, this is Riverbridge, right?
This is what we did with New England Development when they did the mall. We said this is a project that's significant in size and that assistance may be required, and as a result, we want money to support us in whatever way. So we set up a trailer over there. We had staff that was brought in to work with us and our inspectors, and, you know, they did a lot of the preliminary work, and then we went through and they helped us with checklists and stuff like that. So we thought, when we wrote this, that we'd want to do something similar. But I never paid any attention to it after we
Okay,
set it up, so
fair enough.
we
When
perhaps had
else
never
would
said
it
to
have
them.
come in?
This is the terms of the development agreement, so, it would have been, I mean, it doesn't provide dates as far as I can see, but the development agreement was entered into in December 2009. And I didn't see any reference to this particular section in modifications 1 or 2. Okay, so sometime between 2009 and 2013, unless, you know, I mean, or it could even be through 2017.
I'll take a look.
Okay. All right, next section. This is a biggie for the chiefs, for highway. This is the traffic mitigation sections. All right, so this actually was addressed in the development agreement and modifications 1 and 2. So section 3.1A requires the widening, I guess I'll just read it. Section 3.1 says the developer and town agree to cooperate with one another on the implementation of the following traffic mitigation projects in accordance with the phasing schedule indicated in Exhibit B. So this is the Exhibit B that's on pages 35 and 36 of the development agreement. So Section A, River Road West Bridge over North Brook. The work would have been widening the existing bridge deck by replacing the outer deck beams with wider ones on the existing footings to provide a width of 24.5 feet. Construct a separate pedestrian and bicycle bridge on the eastern side of the roadway connecting to the existing sidewalk south of the bridge and a future sidewalk from the bridge to the project. Upgrade sidewalk south of the bridge to the intersection of River Road West with Donald Lynch Boulevard so that it is of consistent design and quality as the new sidewalk from the bridge to the project. So that's the scope of work. And on pages 35 and 36. This is also referred to in Exhibit B. And this actually, this section is actually taken from Exhibit B. So my question is, I have a lot of questions. My question is, has any of this work been completed? None of this part, okay. So the first modification to this, the first modification was executed, when did I say? November 2013. So the first modification allows, with agreement between the Board of Selectmen and Riverbridge, it allows agreement that instead of Riverbridge doing the construction, that there could be agreement to provide a cash payment to the town that would be equivalent to the estimated cost of the travel deck widening and other related work as described in this paragraph 3.1A. Now, I have no idea, and this is, Dave, this is something that you'd certainly have to weigh in on for the board to make this kind of decision, but I don't know if the town would want to take on a project like this. Right, yeah.
Design, engineering,
This is huge money.
beyond the scope of your abilities for manpower, so then it's prevailing wage if you're hiring it out. Well,
I think one of the things we've often wondered is if the adequacy of the culvert, the volume of water that can go under that bridge may not be up to specs anymore because of the changes in floodplain regs. And And they didn't agree to the whole redesign. But I think in the back of our mind years ago, based on what Emerson Chandler and people like that were saying, he was involved with water resources and stuff for the state. But it appeared as though we might very well be looking at a more complex project down the road. And what they were going to offer was really just going to be a piece of the pie, and we might very well, with the bridge work that's going on in the state, go out and try to find more money from the state to deal with that bridge, and really make it a full-blown project that would deal with a number of issues all at the same time. So it may be important for us to look at the bigger picture here
Right.
with just some of their money coming in.
Is this
to support
something
it.
that if we got on the tip,
Yeah.
that we could use this funding, if we took this funding, as what we need is that upfront funding for the project?
Yeah.
We could, but the weight on the tip,
Right.
we could,
we're
but
out-
the weight
yeah.
on the tip
Yeah.
is significantly
Yeah, it's
longer than the
2026.
timeline allowed under the agreement. So
Right.
that's just something
Yeah.
to keep in
Right,
mind.
but we could take the payment prior to then and reserve it for that project, type of a project.
At least we'd have those engineering design funds we keep talking about in
right.
order to do the big project.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility.
Well, am I seeing that this is overdue already?
No, this is actually due December 11th, 2021. It should have been constructed by.
There was another amendment.
That was another.
Oh.
That was another amendment.
Okay,
Yeah, I haven't
thank
gotten
you.
there yet. That's-
All right, 'cause I'm reading this amendment
This is
as
one of
I-
those that had
Yeah.
amendment
There are
after
multiple
amendment.
Okay.
Yeah, when this
Thank
was
you.
first agreed upon in '09, the assumption was that, they were going to move forward, but of course, we're 10 years later, and they're just getting off the ground now. So whenever we made these modifications, there was a realization that it probably wasn't going to take place on that timetable, so we offered them more time.
Which is the second modification, and it says the time frame for the completion of phases 1, 4, and 5, and just for your reference, Phase 1 is the bridge, Phase 4 is the Pleasant Street, South Street intersection, and Phase 5 is the Pleasant Street, Sawyer Hill Road intersection. Phases 1, 4, and 5 of certain roadwork mitigation projects set forth in Exhibit B is changed to the earlier of prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the 380th square foot of construction at River Bridge, and 4 years from the effective date of the second modification. I think that should have read or, but it says and I've noted that. And if it actually is 4 years from the from the effective date of the second modification, the date again is December 11th, 2021. Any other comments or questions on the bridge piece of it for now?
Now, is Phase 5 actually taken care of?
Well, we're heading down to that one next. I want,
They're nowhere near 380, right? It was
No.
150.
we're at about 105, you said, at the moment?
105, yeah.
105, and with the community center and then the first building going online, it would exceed the 150,000
Yeah.
square foot threshold. Okay. So, all right, so 3.1B, construct new mini roundabout at the entrances to the project at River Road West as shown on the approved village development plan. That's completed, correct? Okay, that's done. Okay. 3.1C, the South Berlin Rotary. Upgrade the rotary in conformance with the current roundabout design guidelines, including restriping of the rotary and all approach legs, installing yield ahead and yield signs on all approaches, and trimming or clearing vegetation where necessary to improve sight lines. Is that one complete?
They redid all the signage when they built the mini roundabout. I believe it's all
And that was all
complete.
part of
It was
the-
all part of that
the
one
MassWorks-
project when they did
The
it.
MassWorks grant, they covered that.
Okay. And if there is any outstanding, if there was to be any outstanding work on that, they do have until the completion of the 225,000th square foot of construction on that particular piece. So, but it appears to be complete.
Yeah,
Okay.
from what I recall, watching it all be done, they were working on both. They built a new one and they upgraded the old one.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the next one, the Pleasant Street, South Street intersection. This is referred to as Phase 4 in Exhibit B, with a completion dated December 11th, 2021. So this is to redesign and reconstruct the intersection to form two separate T-type intersections with the South Street westbound and Pleasant Street southbound approaches forming the free-flowing major street approaches, and South Street eastbound and Pleasant Street northbound forming the stop sign-controlled minor street approaches.
Has not been done.
Okay.
And, you know, some of us may ask whether that's finally the approach they should take. I mean,
Right.
It's-
There's got to be some discussion about that, if that's, I don't know how that design could come to fruition with, you know, who owns the land and things like that.
Those are really good points, because Section 3.5 of the agreement, which we haven't gotten to yet, does talk, I think it's, well, there are various sections, actually, that talk about communications between Riverbridge and public safety on how to best address these traffic concerns. So that's something that would probably need additional communication in order to plan for that. So the next one is Pleasant Street, Sawyer Hill Road intersection, that's 3.1E. Redesign and reconstruct the intersection to require all traffic from Sawyer Hill Road to enter Pleasant Street on the north side of the island, and install a stop sign and stop line on Sawyer Hill Road. Allow one-way travel on the southerly leg for Pleasant Street right turns only, and install the necessary signs, do not enter, and pavement markings to clearly mark the one-way section of road.
It was done long ago.
All right.
That's
That was
done.
one of the first things they did, wasn't it?
Good.
yeah, although we might want to hold their feet to the fire a little bit. If there was some resurfacing or curbing or whatever that you wanted, they didn't pay for anything in that one.
Just signage, right? It was.
I don't even know if they paid for that. I think Denny
Denny
just
did
went
it
ahead
himself.
and did it. Because all he did is put up a no left
Yeah,
turn.
and restripe it,
sign
right.
and stripe it, so.
Oh,
But
okay.
I think if you felt that you wanted to make it more perpendicular to Pleasant Street or, you know, whatever, or define it better, that it should be within the realm of this to
Right.
ask for some support from them, not just say it's done. I think that would be
Yeah.
letting them
We
off.
have a consultant.
Dave, maybe we can take a look at it and sit and talk and come back and.
And then the other question is whether
Probably
the no
not
left
that I
turn
I could ask Judy.
is really necessary. One of the things that happens is that trailer trucks that get caught on Pleasant Street coming north try to go down Crosby and get caught on South with the pole. But a lot of that is that no one can tell them anymore that they can go up to the cemetery and turn there,
Right.
which used to work real well for them. And so I think it's appropriate for Highway and you guys
Yeah,
to all
well-
talk about whether
Yeah,
it's-
and
it's-
that's part of the, Part D as well, to talk about that, because
Yeah.
that can be part of that discussion on the redesign of the other intersection. Do we almost possibly eliminate that last leg of South Street and make Crosby where the traffic flows?
Yeah.
That would be one way to possibly address that.
Mhm.
So we can have a discussion about that.
Okay. The Whitney Road Connector is next, and that's 3.1F, construct a connector road along south side of Village Center to provide a connection between River Road West and Whitney Road, allowing vehicles to bypass the Berlin Rotary. The requirement to construct the connector road connecting River Road West and Whitney Road may be waived by the planning board in the VO site plan review. So is there a connector, or?
So what happened was that initially there was going to be a proposed market there with some other commercial uses rather than the minimal traffic generator hotel. So when they came in with the hotel, the agreement was to eliminate the connector
Okay.
because the amount of traffic they were going to generate through the hotel was significantly less than a market or anything like that ever would have.
Okay. So that's the requirement has been waived?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know about you all, but I'm finding this very helpful. I mean, at least we're answering some questions. Okay. All right, so this is an additional piece here, where any of the above described traffic mitigation measures will be undertaken on town-owned land, a considerable portion will be. The parties agree that the mechanics may, at the option of the town, involve the developer contributing agreed-upon budget amounts once the actual costs have been determined to the town, and the town may contract for the work to be completed. So I don't know if there's any portion of this the town would even be willing to take on, so I guess that's something for discussion. I mean, this maybe, I don't know if you want to handle the signs, if you want the developer to be doing signs, things like that, so.
It'd be nice to do something with Pleasant Street, South Street, you know, and if, to use their money is a lot of leverage to get that done. I mean,
Right.
sooner or later, we're gonna have to do something there.
Yeah, we've been lucky over the years.
Yeah, and if we've already put out money to do the Sawyer Hill Pleasant Street, you know, we might need to recoup some of that money if we purchased
Right.
all the signs already through our operating budget.
Something really important, I think, to consider here, there's just a couple of pieces. This needs to be an agreed-upon budget amount once the actual costs have been determined, and the town's costs are could be very different than the developer's costs because we have to pay prevailing wage. So we need to think about that too, and how that would all be coordinated.
Is the town or the developer able to circumvent prevailing wage if they're doing work on public ways?
I was just kind of thinking that same
I don't
thought.
think they can. I think they would still, if it's a project,
You know, that's a very good point, and I think that's something that we would need
I would-
an answer. It's a good point, however, it's a really good point. You know, we recently had a request, we had a street opening, for example, and there are street openings where contractors will come in to lay, in this particular case, a water line recently, or it's happening now, and we haven't required them to pay prevailing wage. We have required performance bonds, but we haven't required them to pay prevailing wage. So we need to look into that to see if that's going to be a requirement.
I just wonder, especially where this is something that is a permanent benefit to the town. This is the town getting a new road or a new
Yeah.
sector versus, you know, someone coming in and opening the road and putting in a water gate or
True,
something.
yeah, that's a really good point, and it's something that we should check on, definitely. I'm going to make note of that. Okay. I did have a question, even though I haven't shaded sections 3.4 or 3.5. I do have questions, police chief questions. Have any traffic contingency plans for peak traffic periods been, or special events associated with the project been discussed to date?
You know, when we had construction issues, we worked with them with the construction of the mini roundabout. But other than that, we haven't had anything that's led to that yet.
Okay.
You know, we have constant dialogue with them, so I don't think that's going to be an issue as we move forward.
Okay.
But as we look towards occupancy in the apartments, that's when those discussions are gonna be had. There were things that were done in the design of the roundabout and when the road was rebuilt to restrict traffic flow in certain directions, limit cross-traffic. So that was part of that design project.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
There's gonna be traffic issues when they run that gas main up the road,
Yeah.
which is one reason I didn't issue them that permit, because they couldn't tell me definitively where that line was going.
Okay.
But that shouldn't be any other that we deal with any other type of road construction projects, but we'll work with them and
Right.
requirements for details and detours and how we handle things.
It looks like the outbound lane is gonna get closed when they come up it. That's gonna be,
Yeah, and but what we'll do is we'll work on time restrictions, because, you know, we can't allow them to do it during the morning commute and different things like that, so.
Okay.
And maybe have to work with Northborough or Marlborough on detours and utilize Bridge Road or utilize Barefoot Road.
So I think clearly we're gonna have to set up a group discussion
Yeah.
on the traffic mitigation stuff. On section 3.5, the developer was supposed to have provided the planning board a bridge construction scheduling plan as part of the VO site plan approval application, and we don't have that yet. Okay.
No, I think it was so far into the future, and I think, at that time, felt that there might be mitigating issues that would modify what was going to happen.
I think it would be very difficult to us to agree upon a traffic plan without even know what the construction design or
Right.
what type of construction we'd be dealing with.
So at the very least, again, we're getting back to bridge construction here and the monies to perform that, so that's definitely something that needs to be addressed. Dave, thoughts on that?
temporary bridge.
Yeah.
There's no way you can close that road down.
No, be tough. Could be quite a
Be
while.
Very, very, you know, but now talk about adding considerable construction costs.
Yeah.
So, you know, this has got to be part of the discussion when we discuss what the town's plan is with the bridge. And we come up with a preliminary plan. I mean, there could be some long-term detours, but there's a lot of traffic on that road to, you know,
Oh, there's 10,000 cars a day?
yeah.
At least.
People on Whitney Road would not be happy with us in
I was just gonna
Northborough
say,
if we
you can't
move everyone
really move
to Barefoot
barefoot.
and Whitney.
Oh, yeah.
Or a bridge road.
Or Bridge Road
That would
could
be a
handle it.
nightmare.
There's no way Bridge Road could handle it.
Okay. All right, so that's going to have to be part of the bigger discussion with
Yeah.
the bridge and all the other.
Yeah, or it could be how we handle the construction. It's one
Yeah.
side at a time, we're able to keep one lane of traffic open. Something would have to be done, but that would all be part of what the construction project was itself.
So here's a thought. Because they're required to provide the design, and other than coming to some sort of other agreement with the town, they're required to actually design and construct the bridge, would we not ask them to begin on the design engineering on the bridge? And it's still something, even though they're paying for it, that would still count as design engineering that we could potentially put into a TIP project.
We could take design and engineering and a cash payment, possibly. Instead of in lieu of construction.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe at least getting on that and being ready with the design engineering, if it's that big of a project.
Yeah, that would allow us to start to do some long-term planning in terms of traffic mitigation and how we're going to handle that, because that could be,
Right. I mean, strategically, that makes a lot of sense, because
Yeah.
it
And it would
puts us in the driver's seat for the longer term. Yeah.
And it would probably happen more quickly than we could accomplish it,
No doubt.
as a town.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just a thought. All right, on to section 4. Oh, here we are, section 4. This is public safety response. I think this, unless you want me to waive reading this, I needed to read it like 3 or 4 times in order to understand through the modifications what was being asked. So, all right, so this was when the development agreement contemplated a CCRC, which was some sort of assisted living.
Continual care retirement community. yeah.
Continued care retirement community.
So that was going to have 90 beds,
Okay.
and then above that to 205 was going to be just regular apartments.
Okay. All right, so the development agreement required that the developer provide or procure an ambulance service for primary service for the residences and commercial uses of the project at no cost to the town. And it further said, the developer shall cooperate with the town and bear all costs involved in seeking necessary approvals so that what is referred to in this section as the developer's ambulance provider has the status of the primary ambulance provider for the project area, and to develop and obtain approval for a service zone plan to create a separate service zone for the project area. And then, in the first modification, there's no reference to this in the second modification, but in the first modification, it says, if the CCRC is not built by the developer shall nonetheless still be obligated to provide, procure, or arrange by contract primary and backup ambulance coverage not involving town services for the commercial space and dwellings at Riverbridge at no cost to the town. So, there are a number of questions here. Is this, how, I mean, I have so many questions on this. How could you assure the safety of the people? This involves dispatch, this involves so many different things. How can we assure the safety and quick response to the residents at Riverbridge or to the commercial spaces at Riverbridge by procuring a private ambulance service through a service zone area? How does that coordinate with the town's public safety? How does that coordinate with regional dispatch? Is it practical? Is it feasible?
from a dispatch perspective, absolutely not. To try and delineate a certain number of addresses that you send one ambulance to or you send another ambulance to could lead to disaster. And that's just on the dispatch end, and I think the chief can probably talk more on the
And I think on the
service
operational
end.
response on the service side, it's like, there's staffing that's in your building, in service, ready to go. And if a call comes in for the apartments that makes it through the system, like it always does, 911 goes to the fire EMS department, and you're gonna tell them not to go. Who's gonna write it down on a piece of paper that they don't respond? You know what I mean? It's somebody else's responsibility,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
now there's like, and run it up, something that's acute to start with, and they deal with it all the time. You have someone in a code that's not breathing, or really serious EMS calls, and they're gonna sit and not go, and they're gonna wait for someone to come out of Hudson. The way the system's set up now, they're gonna wait for someone to come out of Marlboro. There's a huge delay in the patient contact time. And the patient contact time is critical to the successful outcome of many, many patients. And right now, they go in at a BLS level, it's a basic life support, and then they call us triage when it comes in through the dispatch, and if it meets certain criteria, a paramedic unit is dispatched, if available, at the onset of the call. So there's no time delay for the
But you
advanced life
have the
support.
response of basic anyway.
Yep,
Yeah.
they're on the road. They start that basic level, and then if it calls for it, it can be stepped up either by the arrival of an ALS unit or the calling of one. Because sometimes you get dispatched for a basic call anyways, and when you get there, it's completely different what we're dispatched for. You know what I mean? So then they have to start the ALS in there. The staffing's there, it's in your community. I know that they already, it seemed like they already gave away the EMS stuff and the sizable income that would be appropriated with it for them all when they did that. I think, again, I'm only hearing stories, and correct me if I'm wrong,
No,
but it
you're
seemed
right.
like when they were at the rescue fire level, that the rescue at the time decided, oh, well, we don't want to go to the mall. Who cares about the mall? And so, well, mall will take care of it. I think if I'm 60% of the malls in Berlin. So it's like they did that there, and there's a sizable amount of your EMS money that June deals with all the time that goes automatically into the coffers of Marlboro or Patriot, whoever goes, you know?
Okay.
And also, from a technology standpoint, Tim and I were talking about this beforehand, he does not think it's possible working for AT&T in the cell phone industry. He does not think that it's possible to identify from cell phones that this is theirs and this is ours.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
actually had a
it's
conversation
very
yesterday
confusing.
with the regional dispatch director, Ross Clone, who actually, in Lancaster, is it Lancaster, they have a prison, or they?
Yes.
And they had contracted with Woods Ambulance Service, the prison, privately contracted with Woods Ambulance Service. And not only was it challenging for the district to dispatch calls separately for the prison as opposed to the rest of the community, the prison decided to, or Woods, I'm not sure, the private ambulance contractor decided to back out of the agreement.
Just got the letter a week or two ago.
Yeah.
Okay,
With
and
48 hours
so-
notice to the district.
It was
48
that
hours
much
notice to the
cheaper.
district, and so it sent the district scrambling to figure out who's going to be responding to the
Because
prison
that-
now.
and
So-
that was a benefit to the district as well, because it provided an ALS ambulance unit to back up
Mm-hmm.
other responses for other district ambulances. And then that ambulance completely went away in 48 hours.
I think
And-
Bolton's really scrambling. to
Bolton
get
and
some
Lancaster for ALS
Yeah,
service
because
now
it's more
is-
on that corner.
But is there a
We're
legal
lucky with the city here, with
aspect of
Patriot
leaving them
and
hanging?
community being a Marlboro
They're not
Hudson.
leaving anybody hanging.
They're coming in
There's
from
no
there,
requirement
we are.
for that company
Yeah,
to provide that
just like
ALS.
that, pull the
No,
cross.
I'm talking about if
Went
you're
to
saying that
Gardner.
you're not going to do that, the town isn't going to be responsible for something in their town.
And that's part of the problem, is if, we say by this contract, the town doesn't have to send an ambulance. And
If
now the
something
and the
happens.
ambulance is sitting here in quarters, 2 minutes away, and the private ambulance is 12 minutes away because it was handling something
Isn't
else.
that a liability to the
Huge
town?
How do we say as a community when someone passes away, yeah, it's their job, not
Yeah,
ours?
and who's gonna sign off on that?
Not not only legally, but
Yeah.
ethically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, ethically, it's really wrong.
I think that kind of the words in that paragraph that are going to resonate through the community are, no cost to the town.
That is, so
And-
it's clear that's the intent, that the town and, you know, whoever negotiated this agreement, it's clear that we didn't, the town didn't want the additional cost burden for this service. So maybe there's, maybe, I think it's going to require a conversation with Riverbridge to talk about terms that we could come to that would assure patient safety and still cover, you know, make sure that the town doesn't have an additional cost burden for
And I
this.
think
so-
what we, and I don't want to speak for the chief, but when we look at EMS service, when we're able to bill properly, get all the information out, those costs are recouped plus by the town. So we're able to handle that. It's in those instances where, you know, it could be in that area where it's some type of an accident and someone that we may not be able to get all their information, the billing can't be done quite right, and then there's that liability hanging out there that we didn't collect that funding.
Yeah.
And is there a way that we can work through with Riverbridge that if we have a call in their jurisdiction per se,
Yeah.
that we don't get paid or the person doesn't have insurance or something is, that liability falls on them.
That we recoup that money. You know, the other thing too, the other consideration in this, and I think it's just a fact. We have, you know, we've talked about the buildings and the 3-story. They built it within a certain specs that don't require elevators. And so I think that our personnel, I mean, it clearly makes sense for the town to respond because the town is there. But we also, that poses an additional risk to our personnel as far as injury and things. So I think those things need to be considered in talking
Should
with
be one of the
Riverbridge too.
discussion
'Cause
points.
you're talking about like 111F claims and
Yeah, and I
things.
know that there's no way that, I can guarantee you, listening to some of the places where I came from, that a public ambulance, a private ambulance, will go in, and they'll call for help when they can't get anybody up. So you're probably gonna respond anyways, because they're gonna ask for
Uh-huh.
additional manpower.
Yeah.
If it's not a Berlin ambulance and an engine there, it's gonna be a Patriot or a Community and the Berlin engine there, and with no fee generation at all, because you don't get anything for just going with it. It's only when you
And we're
provide
going to
the
respond
service.
as well if
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
an accident, if it's
Yeah.
you know, some type of an altercation, something that leads to an injury.
Right.
We're going to respond,
We-
and we're going to need to respond because we may have an investigative aspect of it where if it's going through a third party, we may not get that information.
So I would imagine, and maybe this is a conversation that we need to have, or anybody needs to have with Lancaster or towns that actually have seen service zone areas. I guess, you know, I don't even have an idea of the cost that Riverbridge would pay to contract with this private primary and backup ambulance service. There has to be a significant cost associated with that.
I'm not sure. I know that where I came from, Milford,
Yeah.
ran a private ambulance service for the community, a 911 system, they call it, done by the privates, and they didn't get zero return, and they go to probably 3,000 calls a year,
Yeah.
and don't make a penny on it, you know what I mean?
Okay.
You just send an engine or a rescue to whatever's gotta go, to motor vehicle accident, medical, and here you get a significant potential fee generation here.
Yeah.
I don't know what the demographics will be. What do you think the demographics will be? That would be some,
Well, we're gonna have
high-
to determine the number of bedrooms.
you know,
I think-
well, I mean, the high number of like people that will be able to afford insurance and have that.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
you're going to find that's the case, so I think
They're
that's
all
a
two
positive. And-
bedrooms.
and,
Yeah.
With
I
a
looked
den.
it up. The
Two
I mean, the
bedrooms with a
fact is,
den.
the first
It
agreement
is.
with Solomon Pond was 25 years ago, and then this last one was begun 10 years ago. So your sophistication has changed dramatically in that period of
Right.
time.
Turn it into a
I
bedroom.
mean, we were talking about 25 years ago, when we first started talking to Marlboro and saying, well, you know, our capacity and our ability and the insurance network and all this stuff, it was an entirely different
There were probably
world.
free ambulance calls in.
Well, it was an entirely different world, and we just
You
said,
must remember.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
10 years ago, it just wouldn't have been able to sustain.
no.
Even 5 years ago,
Right.
with the way
Yeah.
response times were until we had
So I-
staff here more often.
Yeah.
But I would think Sennies would be eager to enter the conversation, particularly if we can get an idea from somebody else as to what their
Cost would be.
potential costs might have been.
Yeah. Is there
but-
anything else you can share as far as the are we missing anything from the negotiating of putting that in?
putting this in?
Yes. Is there anything we're missing?
I mean, that was the big factor. It was just.
We didn't
no
have the
cost.
manpower
We-
to actually.
It was, we copied a lot of language from the New England Development Agreement, which was 25 years ago. That became a blueprint for both Highland Commons and Riverbridge. And they modified, but it was still, we weren't sophisticated like you guys are now. I mean, this is light years ahead of where we were, so, you know.
We're very
You
sophisticated.
can use your imagination. So, I mean, people were doing a great job, but we didn't have the amount of money, and we didn't have the technology, we didn't have the regional dispatch, there's all sorts of things. So it wasn't as though people weren't keeping up, it was just, it was a different world,
Yeah.
and insurance issues were different and all that sort of stuff,
So
so.
might want to take a look and try to find out what the cost would have been.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need
River
to.
Bridge.
Yeah.
And 'cause that critical care one, that they run one of those right over the line from Hopkins and Ashland, it's probably some days, 3 calls a day there.
Mm.
But they're not, I know they're not doing that now, just to give you an idea how busy it would be.
Prison.
So probably
call
they'd be
prison.
very amenable to some sort of mitigation
Well,
funds
we'll
into
start
a
talking to
Maybe,
Spot on.
maybe every 5 years they have to buy us an ambulance.
When we-
Either that, or what if they could be modified for staffing?
Yeah.
In lieu of the cost of what that would have been on an annual
Yeah.
They
basis?
cover the cost
I
of an
want to talk
employee every year or
hundreds of
something.
thousands.
Yeah, there's some ways, there's definitely some ways to talk about it.
Generate the
That's
numbers.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, so we, I guess.
We have to see what Hudson contracts for.
Patriot. Now, I thought it was a huge amount of money.
Yeah, as
I
a
really
I
resident-
know,
as a
I
resident,
know
it's
a few
frustrating
other
that we throw all
communities
that
that
money
do
away.
contract out their ambulance
That's a whole nother-
service,
They're
but
doing
that's for an
4 or 5
entire
medicals.
community. I just don't know if we're talking apples to apples here, if we do that.
But still,
Yeah.
to even have a, there's no way they'd be able to dedicate a, excuse me, go ahead.
Oh, I just said even helping with staffing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's no way they'd be able to dedicate an advanced life support truck to that place, because it's not making any money for them unless it's going on a call.
Right.
So
Right.
they're gonna be, put it someplace where it's busy, and if it gets sucked back into the system in Marlboro or Hudson, it's not available.
Or us.
Or Berlin.
It would end up probably being our
Default to our
primary ALS.
Because they're tied up.
So it's like, there's, so it's not, I think they,
Putting money into our ambulance EMS service
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than
Yeah,
doing it themselves.
Every so many
So
years,
more
they
of a
cover a new
mitigation.
ambulance, or they cover a cost of
Right.
personnel.
Right.
You know, I
Specific.
really would, I really would want to assure, you know, maybe I'm jumping a little too far ahead, but I do worry about injuries to personnel in a situation like this, and I really would want to assure that funds that we receive could be set aside or reserved in some way that we would be able to make payments on 111F claims, you know, or any injuries to our personnel. So I just think that's kind of it's a safety net for the
well,
town.
you always kinda have that kinda hanging over your head as
You
chief
do.
goes when you go out, but it's just, it's to go up and down to the second and third floor with a chair stretcher, and it's all back, and it's like, and they crawl a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yeah.
it's slow and challenging,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Well, the other problem that you're going to run into as well is, right now, if we have multiple, or even just a motor vehicle accident right now during the day, we get the ambulance out the door,
Yeah.
but we don't have anybody coming back for the engine. Which usually, the engine follows the ambulance out the door. So in this case, during the day, if our ambulance crew is looking for additional help, they're going to be taxing our mutual aid system. They're going to be calling in Northborough. Then Northborough's going to get tired of coming over here to assist us for manpower, which we should be either staffing or supplying or, at that matter.
Yeah.
Sounds like what
It would be
Ross was
more,
saying.
like, we were talking about this yesterday, it would be more like supplemental aid rather than mutual aid.
That's
But
what
it's
that's what we
different.
were at policing before we added staff, 4 years ago.
Well, you figure this was
It
10 years ago, so
yeah.
it was a
It's-
definite big difference in
Yep.
Right.
pictures as what.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you need to stop them from staging, possibly staging an ambulance bay over at the site? If you're going the direction of keeping it at the Berlin EMS level, do you want to talk to them about preventing them from building an ambulance bay with the same money?
They're not building anything.
Just gonna sit them in the parking lot
Yeah.
with the windshield wipers going on when it's raining, that's all they do.
Yeah, but then you
If
have
that.
Yeah.
So this is
That's
gonna
all we
need
have
to
to do.
sit down and talk soon.
This is, yeah, this is,
You know,
this is
I mean,
a,
as much as we need to talk about those traffic things, this is gonna
gonna
be,
be-
especially with
This is gonna
occupancy
be
on the
February.
horizon.
this is
Yeah.
a
I mean,
big,
because we're already responding to calls there. we're already going to the hotel, we're already going to the daycare center, the gas station. So,
Okay. All right, so the next one, I think that's a simple question. So are they providing reports to the planning board, or have they provided reports to the planning board for the on-site detention basins and catch basins?
Did we say planning board or did we say conservation? It says
I
planning board.
think it says
Oh, okay.
planning board on this one.
No, they're not.
They're not, okay. So we need to, and Dave, you'd be involved in that too, I suppose? So we need to get, this is section, I'm sorry, I should be numbering 5.1 and
Oh, okay.
5.2.
All right.
5.2. I was a little surprised too that it was planning board and not conservation, but, hey,
Yeah, because for Solomon Pond, we said conservation.
okay.
If they're handling that already for that one, I might want to change that also.
It should be Concom as opposed to planning board.
If that's
That would be a
Yeah.
more logical
appropriate.
connection. Yeah.
rather
Well,
than.
it's under stormwater, though.
Conservation handles that. but not
Who's the
planning.
stormwater permitting authority?
Oh, it
Is
does
it
say
planning?
planning board.
Okay. All right. I encourage you to read sections 6 through 10 on your own to see if they've met those requirements. I think I was getting tired by the time. No, I encourage you to read those sections on your own. And then I had a burst of energy for the last.
This is the next day.
Well, let's be thankful you didn't write what you were thinking, so, yeah, I just.
In the single, oh, okay.
So section 11.1, I assume that they are contracting for solid waste removal at their own expense, and they are not just bagging things and bringing them to our landfill, transfer station.
it's dumpstered right now.
Dumpsters?
But would that limit residents in the apartments from getting transfer station permits?
This is something that we need to, this is something that we need to ask. Now, let me, I wasn't in great, didn't,
I think Whitney Estates actually does pay for transfer station.
I was gonna say, do they,
Stickers?
will they have their own? I was gonna say, have their own.
Yeah, but if you rent and you have an address here, what would prevent you from getting you have large items that they don't accept in the
Mattress,
dumpsters?
something.
Yeah.
Well, just for reference, it says, the developer shall contract for solid waste removal at the developer's expense in the event that the town of Berlin is required to provide solid waste removal for any reason, including but not limited to any applicable law or regulation, or failure of the developer's contract to properly.
So I wonder if that's just if the trash is floating around down there and we have to pay somebody to go clean it up, we can
Yeah.
charge them.
Yeah,
Could come in handy.
Yeah, I was
huh?
just thinking that.
so, it says in such event, the town and developer shall work together to establish a plan to coordinate such services.
So you would think that they would just be able to contract one of the,
Well, with Brook Lane, we ended up saying they couldn't, they had to contract independently. Then there was an issue with large chairs and stuff like that. They wanted to dump and pay the fee. And they came to the selectmen. Did they work out an agreement? Were you on the select board?
No, I wasn't on then.
That was quite a while ago.
It was before
so there was
Mary
some-
even?
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Probably.
yeah,
Mary,
yeah.
check with the Board of Health,
Yeah,
maybe?
way before.
okay.
Board of Health.
In regard to River Bridge, Brook Lane and solid waste, other than just general, if they had large objects that they wanted, and they wanted it, because Ron Barushka got on the planning board as a result of that. He came to the planning board initially and said, what's all this about?
That was a good thing.
So,
Yeah, I don't know.
we've
how they-
dealt with this issue before in regard to independent individuals in a project
Maybe it goes,
where we've said, the project
I know
is
Whitney Estates, I
under
think,
its own-
can bring they pay the fee and then they can just take their
They can
garbage
do
there.
that, yeah.
Maybe Brook Lane's a little different, so it could be done
Yeah,
differently.
Brook Lane is an overlay, and we put in some special language, as I recall.
Okay.
Maybe we'll look into that one, huh? see what we can do.
I just totally blanked out, I'm sorry.
That's all right, but just the
Anybody
waste
taking notes?
removal, just double check on,
The waste removal thing, yes, yes.
yeah.
So interestingly enough, the Section 12 is a schedule of liquidated damages, and there are fines for failure to provide reports or maintain catch basins, and those fines would be, well, for that, it would be $50 a day beginning 10 business days after developers receive written notice of violation. I have no idea if they've ever received notices of violations, just don't know. There's also penalties for failure to perform maintenance on conservation restricted areas, and failure to provide reports to the planning board under certain sections. So anyway, I encourage you to read this section as well. All right, jumping forward to section 13.3. And Molly couldn't be here today, so some of these provisions actually apply to or are relevant to the assessors. So section 13.3 reads, in the event the developer appeals its real estate tax assessment and such appeal is finally denied, the developer shall reimburse the town for its costs of reasonable appraisal, legal, and other professional expenses incurred by the town with respect to such appeals for abatement of real estate taxes up to a maximum of $20,000 per event. Now, they have appealed with the ATB in the past. I don't know the disposition of those cases. I don't believe there's any kind of current appeal with the ATB on Riverbridge. So I will follow up with the assessor and find out what the disposition has been in the prior appeals. All right, 14. Here's where, so back in the prior to the inception of this agreement, the town contracted on a financial impact analysis to determine the fiscal impacts of the CCRC on the town. And what it ended up determining was that if the CCRC wasn't constructed or was delayed, that there would be a negative fiscal impact on the town. And so Riverbridge, at this time, agreed to make payments to the town in amounts that would, well, let me see, that would compensate for the negative fiscal impact to the town. And those amounts were, I'll read this part here. If 2 years after a CO is issued for the 100th residential unit outside the CCRC, a certificate of occupancy has not been issued, well, that's supposed to be CCRC, or regardless of how many residential units outside the CCRC are built, if a period of 4 years elapses after the date of the town meeting at which the village overlay district was approved, whichever occurs first and for an indefinite period thereafter, so long as no CO for a CCRC has been issued, the developer shall make a payment to the town of Berlin for $51,200 payable each November 1st. So I don't think, we haven't issued a CO yet on the residential units, and maybe I'm misinterpreting this, but it seems as though when the COs begin being issued for the residential units, the $51,200 would be payable each November 1st after those, or am I
This is for
mistaken?
continuous care, though, isn't it?
No, it's because no CO has ever been issued for, it says,
No CCRC is going to be built.
yeah.
There was
No
amendment.
C, yeah.
But then we amended, right?
It was amended.
There was an amendment, yeah. It says if Riverbridge, on the first, oh yeah, this one had multiple.
The first.
Oh, God, yeah, the first, if Riverbridge does not construct a CCRC, but does construct a state licensed memory care and nursing facility, either at Riverbridge or elsewhere, it shall no longer be liable for the above-mentioned annual fee of $51,200. And that hasn't
It hasn't
happened.
Pretty much if it doesn't build either of those, it doesn't have to pay.
So, and then finally, I mean, there's another modification in the second mod and a third modification in the second modification, which says the date on which Riverbridge must begin to make such extra tax payments to the town is hereby extended to the November 1st, following the 4th anniversary of the effective date of this second modification. That date would be November 1, 2022.
Right, and there's also that language that says an additional type under modification 2 of development at Riverbridge or elsewhere in Berlin by principals of Riverbridge shall allow Riverbridge to avoid such extra tax, a senior residential development containing at least 50 bedrooms. So it's been notched down considerably from that initial requirement. So, I mean, it isn't just a memory care anymore, it's senior residential development as
Oh.
well.
Okay.
Buy Chris Slade's and build that.
So if they haven't, am I understanding this
Matt is
So
buying
2021,
for 2020?
2021 in November
You gotta talk to Chris.
is when
Yeah.
the threshold gets tripped.
Or is
Yeah.
it the 4th anniversary of the second mod, which would be 2022? Is that
Or is it
right?
22
I think it's
now?
2022,
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
in the comments, 2022.
What's the new proposed one up the street? They got involved in that?
I think so.
So that is something
That's what
we
I
need to
heard
discuss.
anyway.
I don't know if there are any plans at all in the future to do this, if this would warrant an extension on that particular payment, if they have plans to do anything of the sort.
Might ask them
Well,
what their plans are.
yeah, I mean, they've been looking at options.
Okay.
But haven't arrived at an alternative. They don't want to be in a position where they've got to pay us 51.2 year after year after year after year, so they're,
Well, let's not move out the date anymore.
Well, yeah, let them pay
We're
until they
done
do
moving the
something.
date
This
out, so.
modification
Right.
was 2017. Wouldn't that be 2021?
Was the second modification was 2017? Then yes, you're right, I'm sorry. You're right.
No, it's the December town meeting.
Is it?
So the 4th November
I was
after
just
that.
looking at what was.
The effective date of the second modification.
It says up here that
That
the
was
second
December.
modification of development agreement, December 2017.
So it would be the November 1st following, so it is 2022.
Because of the town.
There you
meeting-
go.
town
Okay.
meeting date, yeah.
Okay, so it is November 1, 2022. All right, so we can have a discussion with them on that.
By a month.
I know. So, section 14.3, and we were doing a little running around this morning trying to see if we could get an answer to this. I think that it's difficult to tell if at the time the developer drew its first building permit that it made a one-time payment to the town of $5,000 to cover the
I don't have
cost.
any record of it, but.
Right, and I went and asked Leanne. There is no, she submitted the first lump sum payment of $331,000, I believe, for all those payments that were
But it was
issued.
just for the permits.
But it was just for the
listed on
permits. And
sheet.
so I think,
But this also expands back, and that's not just the NRP group, this is the
right,
whole,
that's right, the whole development, so it's even, yeah, so this is,
which I didn't give that
So they,
consideration.
that goes back to the
The hotel, the
time.
gas station, the
That's
gas
right.
station.
growing room.
that's
So
right.
you gotta go back to when the gas
Growing room
station,
was after.
was the gas station
Station was
part of this
first. I
think
project?
the
Yeah,
gas
so the
station
gas
was
station would have been the
first.
first building permit.
So, all right, so permit issued on the
14,
gas station.
Yeah.
it's 5 years ago.
Well, if it's by
No,
the second
it was before
modification,
that.
then that's.
Is
it's
it
after
Gas station, the gas station was open before I got here. I got here in 13.
You've been here very long.
So is there a way that, so if the gas station was first, would there be files in the building commissioner's office that we may, Leanne would know the answer to this probably, that we may be able to go back to
I'd
see
say-
about?
I'm going to go
origin?
out on a limb on this one
Yeah.
and say absolutely not, because at
Right.
that point in time, I believe we were paying a percentage.
And I'd say just ask Chris or
Yeah.
Matt, and they'll tell us. They know. Chris will know.
Okay,
And then no one here has to spend time
okay.
looking for old files.
All right, so we will ask.
You doing inspections then? Yeah, you do inspections.
We're getting there, we're getting there. Okay.
Yeah.
What else do we have now?
Very. right?
All right, so here's the actual implementation of the mitigation payments. So, section 14.4, as to public safety costs, there's likely to be transitional costs at the town's public safety agencies as they grow to accommodate the increase in the town's population attributable to the project. So as a special mitigation measure addressing such transitional public safety costs, the developer agrees to make 5 annual payments to the town of $100,000 each, payable by November 1st of each year. And it does say when the earlier of the following 2 events has occurred. Since there's no CCRC, it would be when a certificate of occupancy for the 150,000th square foot of development has been issued, regardless of the use of those square feet.
So which of the buildings down there under this agreement? A hotel?
Everything.
The hotel,
The
the
gas
gas
station.
Everything a
Station.
CO is issued
The
for.
growing room, the
cafe.
daycare.
Yep.
So right now, we were at 105,000
Mhm.
without anything in the apartment complex. So once
When you
once they get occupancy on A3 and the clubhouse, they'll be over to 150.
So you're close.
But the payment is not due until
Until
November
November.
1st, and it doesn't seem that we have any, we don't really have, we don't have the ability under this agreement to expedite that payment, so that November 1st is going to be well into next fiscal year.
Yep.
So we just can't reasonably project that as a definite
Right.
receipt at this point. Okay. Now we get into the River Run.
On the transfer station, Sewer Gear says anyone who buys the transfer station sticker can use the dump.
Anyone. They have to be a resident, though,
I was
correct?
gonna say, but businesses
Any
can't
residents.
use it. Businesses have to pay for their own disposal.
So is the
Yeah.
apartment complex a business?
No, that's a definitely, I think it's treated, I think if we were to ask the assessors, that is definitely residential.
Yeah, but it would be worth looking at the River Run agreement and why it was that we told folks there, based on the agreement, that they weren't allowed to purchase
You mean Brook Lane?
Brook Lane, yeah.
Brook Lane, yeah.
Because, and whether we overrode that, and then as a result felt we couldn't do, somehow there's,
But what does Sawyer Hill do as well? The Eco Village?
yeah.
It's the same type of-
I don't know as we had an agreement with Sawyer Hill the same way, because that was a 40B as opposed to an overlay. And both of these are overlays where we stuck in additional language that, tried to reduce cost to the town. So
Yep.
somewhere in my memory, and I can ask Ron, we can see.
That'd probably be the
Yeah,
easiest
'cause
solution.
he was spearheading that conversation way
Yeah.
back a while ago. So I'll ask Ron,
All right, if you don't find, you should find out something.
yeah.
Does the sticker purchase not pay for the cost of trash?
Not fully.
No.
It's not self-funded.
All right.
So, you're on to River Run?
I'm on to River Run. We're on to River Run. I'm not, I made notes on this section, and I didn't, I'll be honest, I didn't really study the River Run lease agreement. I just made notes from the development agreement on this and focused more on the revenues that we should be eligible to receive through businesses leased by Riverbridge on that property. So unless anybody has things that you want to address from 14.7A through section E, I'd like to jump to, through section C. I'd like to jump to section E, the second modification, number 5. So this is the leasing of land at River Run to Boundless Adventures LLC. And so this provides that in recognition of the town's option to purchase Lot 6B at River Run for $1, and currently the town leases that annually for $1, if I'm not mistaken, as per section 14.7 of the development agreement, 1/2 of the net leasehold revenues paid to Riverbridge Glen LLC shall be paid over to the town, a 50-50 split, as additional River Bridge project mitigation. And then it goes on to say net leasehold revenues are net of real estate taxes, property and liability insurance, and reasonable costs of management and maintenance of River Run by Riverbridge Glen LLC, if any. In addition, the costs incurred by Riverbridge related to securing this tenant for the benefit of both parties and the costs of readying the site for this use, including permitting and physical improvements of the site incurred by Riverbridge, up to a maximum of $50,000, shall be reimbursed from initial rental payments before the 50-50 split of net rental revenues is commenced. So I don't have, do we have this lease agreement between Riverbridge and Boundless Adventures? That's the lease agreement.
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent. Okay, so if we have, because I wasn't sure what mechanism the town would have in order to determine at what point we would actually see a portion of the leasehold revenues.
So,
We did not last year. There were none.
There were
we're
none.
none. And this year, I said to the Sennies the other day, you need to prepare some statement as to what the status is, and that was on the tip of their tongue too. So they've got some sense of what that revenue is, and
Okay.
it's not where it was forecast to be.
Okay.
And so there's some minimum payment, perhaps in the lease agreement, I can't remember.
Is there?
So they're prepared to chat with you on it
Okay.
anytime you want.
I've got the marked up one,
I
and
was
I
just,
don't know what the
one of my
difference
biggest
is.
questions was whether or not there's a provision in this lease agreement that allows the town, I know that it's not public record, but that would allow the town to see the financials. So, I guess that's
Did
something
he
we
bring
can.
in the financials last year to Dennis?
Yeah, that seems like-
I thought he did.
Yeah.
There should be something probably too that says at this date every year, the
Yeah.
town
It's a
should
settlement,
receive
Yeah, so,
information on where this
so
Now,
we can
doesn't
look.
the assessors have to get financials for personal property?
You know, not for leased properties, that's the only thing. So I think this is a question, definitely a question for the assessors, to see if there's some way that we could deal with Riverbridge as the property owner, but for the lease itself, I don't think
But
they would.
wouldn't they have a personal property tax, not real estate, personal property,
So,
go
yeah,
to the leasee?
it should go to the, it should go,
So
be
wouldn't
with the
they
lessee.
have to be the ones that would file the list?
If there, yep, if there
It's a den.
is equipment
We'll have
and
to
stuff to
check.
claim as personal
Yeah.
property.
So the first one we walk in, on A3, 101, the one we go in all the time, that's that
The
layout.
building, the bedrooms.
So Dave,
Three?
So it's two-bedroom.
there's no three bedrooms.
Yeah.
They have one room labeled as a den.
Difference. That's
I
good
was
to,
told that. I think Matt told me that, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
just had
Closet.
forgotten.
it's just hard to, you know, it's,
Closet.
Who needs a closet?
this'll help answer those questions.
Has a
with
door.
this.
Because I asked the question a couple weeks ago to give the information to the school. and-
Yeah.
And I got, I mean, my memory's lousy now, but, I mean, my recollection is 2 studios and no 3 bedrooms. Because I thought there were going to be 2 3-bedrooms, but I think I got told none. And
Ah.
I'll go back and look at that email and I'll
Yeah.
send it to you.
That would, you know, 2 bedrooms, yes, and now, so it makes more sense now that the projections for school-aged children at the apartments was so low.
Yeah.
I mean, this definitely points to more like commuter housing and things
Unless
like
people
that.
play games with these dens, which
Yeah, I
doesn't
mean,
happen
right.
in the real world,
That
but
doesn't
All the
happen.
time.
No.
Yeah.
So,
No, never happens.
No.
it can be a closet, right?
How many kids would you say?
so,
Those are good sizes.
That's a good size for,
Yeah.
like a
Fit 4
Throw
sets of
in-
bunk beds.
I was just
Yeah.
gonna
What
say
size
bunk
is
beds.
that? Is the den-
14 by something.
Are the dens the
14?
same size as the rooms?
Hold on.
My room is
Yeah, they
12 by
were. They look
12.
the
I
same
mean,
size,
exactly.
just about.
14 by something is
Watch
huge.
the walls start going up around
Come on.
it.
I think
Yeah.
it's a start, you know, and it's gonna be see as we go along, you're probably gonna find, because it's not.
I'm sorry,
you know,
it's-
with all the
Everything
changes,
is
It's not a straight.
10 and a half by 12 and a half.
Oh,
So it's still the,
My
Lots of
gosh,
probably-
I got a bedroom that size.
it's as big as the bedroom, the second bedroom.
Sure.
So-
Perfect for a bunk bed.
Yeah.
Or
Couple of
two,
sets.
or
Everything
three.
just seems to be interconnected.
Crawl through one to get to the other.
Oh, let's set up a little fort.
We'll do it.
It's not
Those attics
straightforward.
over at Sawyer Hill
We'll
or
do it.
basements.
No.
And there's no provisions to say, well, we need this data from you at this point to
Yeah.
go forward, or any of those pieces.
So we have conversations we need to have. How, I guess I'll just ask for feedback. Tim, you said you would look at, I'm just trying to go through my really poor notes here. You'd follow up on the mix of housing.
Right.
Make sure that's in,
And I'll look at total bedrooms.
and total
And
bedrooms.
I'll ask Ron about Brook Lane's trash.
Okay. The intersections, the bridge, that's going to require discussions with Riverbridge, communication with Riverbridge to see how we move forward with that. And I guess I would suggest seeing if they'd be amenable to proceeding with the engineering design work on the bridge, because one way or another, the work has to be done. I mean, whether we can get it on a tip and get it expedited through completion of the engineering design, maybe, but we could be looking at a much longer time than
Is
that.
there any money, is there any bridge money separate from the tip? There is, isn't there?
There's small bridge money.
Yeah, and
That's larger than a small bridge.
that is.
It doesn't meet the criteria.
Small bridge is just a culvert?
It's got to be less than 19 feet, I believe,
Okay.
span.
The other thing that I would ask, and I can probably touch base, we didn't talk much about the Concom's part in this today, but I think that I probably will, I probably will refer this, the agreement to Concom to take a look at the open space mitigation and the stormwater sections too, to see if we can kind of resolve those things. Okay, so bridge intersection, that's going to be a joint public safety and public works discussion, right? Ambulance, I mean, I'm happy to contact, whoever I can possibly contact to find out
Do you want to
about.
reach out to Chris with kind of a list of questions or action items and see if we can set up a meeting where
Yeah.
multiple groups can be at the table at one time to
Yeah,
talk
we
about
could,
some of
we
these
could do a
things?
follow-up conversation with Riverbridge altogether, yeah. Our follow-up meeting here was scheduled for what, January 9th? Would you like me to invite them on that date? And that way we can all be in the same room together to talk about next steps, and maybe we will have done a little bit more of our homework? Okay, why don't I invite them? Mary, can we invite them to, that was at,
January 9th,
9.
9 o'clock.
that was at what time?
9.
9 o'clock on January 9th. Thank you,
It
June.
wasn't 8.
I was talking to Sue here.
I know.
She says stickers can be given to tenants.
Okay.
She's
And
saying
that's fine, I think.
She's saying Brooklyn.
But do
So
we-
Brook Lane's getting them.
Yes.
I think
So,
the
I'm sorry,
intent of
January 9th at 9 is to
9
invite-
a.m.,
I know there was some
invite the
frustration about how that was
Sennies.
working, but I
Yeah.
thought they would be-
Yeah, I'd still be.
And that's going to be for a discussion of the
We
development
may have said
agreement
they
and
can, but
development
there's
agreement
other
and modifications.
mitigating issues,
Okay,
you know.
all right.
That whole thing needs closer inspection, but that's not really under, that's something.
And I'll check and see if there's any other funny little funds, because I have a lot set up.
Yeah, that
They're
one with the
different, but
5,000.
There's all different names
Okay.
that's associated with this, but I think most of them are all like the planning board type
I
or
think you're right.
conservation. I don't think
I'd
we've
be
received
surprised
any
if-
money.
No, I don't think they've, yeah, but again, I think Chris can answer that
Yeah.
question for you and Matt real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good idea. So on January 9th at 9 o'clock, we'll plan to meet with them if they're available. And I really appreciate you all going through this with me.
Would it be helpful going forward to maybe have a more visual timeline of when things kick in too, rather than
would.
having to go through this?
It
Have
would.
something that,
It would.
Flow
Are you
chart
volunteering?
type.
Are you volunteering?
Good job, good job.
I mean, I did my best boiling down the 50 pages
You
into
did good. You
5,
did
but it's
good.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and,
not
and,
immediately, it just, I think that
yeah.
for future, rather than having to go back into that crazy document every single time, it would be nice
Yeah.
to have those, okay, this kicks in, and then you can go look at that, and this kicks in, and you can go look at that.
Well, and even for our discussion on January 9th, to have a more bulleted list, we can try to put something together to just,
Ask Chris if he's already coming.
maybe he does.
On the financial end of it, I'll
Can you-
double check with our auditors, because they at one time.
So Richard, I don't see
Really?
anything imminent that's going to affect our
Yes.
personnel.
Yes.
So I'll check with them
Not
too.
according to,
Oh, good.
doesn't trigger
Wow.
till after
All right.
We'll have to-
those two
All
come
right, so we'll
online.
plan
Yeah.
on January 9th then at 9 o'clock for the follow-up meeting and see if we can come to some, I like the fact that we even have some check marks here of things that have been done. This is good. It's good. I'll take those out of the summary now. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike.